It comes up in Quebec politics no matter what.
L'identité.
Sur les enjeux identitaires.
But what is Quebec identity?
I don't think it's up to any political parties to decide who is a Quebecer.
You live in Quebec, you're a Quebecer.
It all comes down to who you ask.
They gather at this book launch determined to write a new chapter for the home they love.
Hi, my name is Nabil Ben Ali Ouriaghli. I'm originally from Morocco. I came to Quebec in 2017.
My name is Benjamin Gingras. I am a member of the Timiskaming First Nation Anishinaabe. I'm from Val-d'Or, Quebec. I live in Montreal.
Benjamin, Nabil, thank you so much for being here. We are at Club Bay, or as some of us call the Sovereignty Cafe. Why do you want an independent Quebec, Benjamin?
I think support independent Quebec because I think it's the opportunity to repair a historical wrong that's been perpetrated on Quebec culture, but also on Indigenous cultures across Canada, basically. We've never been offered the opportunity to be at the table to decide what kind of country we want.
And what about you, Nabil?
When I came in 2017 and I onboarded on Pierre-Elliott-Trudeau Airport, I was welcomed in a bonjour hi welcoming, and then I saw a different culture inside the Montreal, in the rest of Quebec. So I understood that I was looking for Canadians. I wanted to meet locals, but I never could meet Canadians in Quebec. I met Quebecers, which were speaking a different language with the accent, the Québécois accent. So yeah, it would be more clear for the immigrants to know that they are in an independent country, Quebec, francophone, with their own values like secularism.
Le côté autochtone en moi.
I have spoken to people from various Indigenous communities, and yes, they recognize the colonization by the British, but they also say the French were colonizers as well.
It's an easy reflex for sovereignists to have to say that only the English colonization and only Canada are responsible for colonization in Canada. That's not exactly true, and there's been colonization since Samuel de Champlain. And even up into the 20th century, like all the hydroelectric projects were done without Indigenous consent as well, which we can say is a form of colonization. In 1995, Indigenous communities, namely up north, voted 95% against separation. So I think sovereignists have to reckon with perhaps a painful and very uncomfortable truth and an uncomfortable past, but I think it's a necessary step for us to build the bridges between the Quebec sovereignist movement and Indigenous communities as well if we want to build something together going forward.
Augmenter la qualité de vie de tous les Québécois, Québécoises.
I have spoken to people who have just arrived here. They're paying thousands of dollars to get into French classes, and sometimes there is this feeling that they are not wanted here. They don't feel included.
The thing is here that I think there's a misunderstood in how the immigrants see this need of independence, and how Quebecers might see newcomers like an instrumentation of the federal government to erase the French culture, the French identity of Quebecers. And that's create a kind of tension. Most of newcomers do not know this reality, this history, because they have different priorities when they come to a new country. They want to rebuild themselves, they want to create a new life. It takes time to understand Quebec's history.
You talk about secularism being a Quebec value. So somebody who wears a religious symbol at school but doesn't spread their own religious beliefs, but just does their job. What kind of values do you think they have?
This is part of the universalism ideology like I was talking about, and I'll tell you why. Quebec is one of the province for now that welcomes the more people from the North African countries, which comes to be Francophones, but also comes to be Muslims. I saw also in Morocco this kind of extremism, sometimes of ideologies coming from from far above our frontiers.
And I don't think anyone wants to see extremism, and there are already rules in place to tackle it. People who wear turbans, who volunteer at schools, who are worried if they're a parent and they can't wear a turban and volunteer at a school. So how do you reconcile that?
I guess that the discussion is beginning since 2019. We're still maturing in this subject.
And on the topic of Bill 21, I think we can recognize that it's a debate even within the sovereignist movement too, because they're saying that like 150 teachers and other professionals lost their jobs in Montreal because they refused to take off their hijab. As far as I'm concerned, like if what they're teaching is secular, then and respects the curriculum, then that's all that matters to me.
What about the English-speaking community? What place do they have in an independent Quebec? Because there are English-speaking community generations who've been here. They have felt worried about their institutions.
They totally fit in the Quebec society because they're also part of the historical community of Quebecers. They built Quebec together with Francophones.
English is my first language. And I've always been to school in French, and my community that I'm from is primarily English-speaking as well. The historical Anglophone communities in Quebec have been responsible for building, universities and hospitals, and are a major part of Quebec's identity, part of its history. And I think it's incumbent on sovereignists like us to embrace that, basically, because they are an important part of our community. They are an important part of our country. I think, like any minority, they have rights. We're not in the business of shutting down schools or hospitals or anything like that because they hold an English name or anything like that. But I think it's important that they be part of the conversation too.
So in the end, in your view, either one of you, who defines who is a Quebecer?
I don't think it's for anybody else to decide. I think Quebec society isn't about assimilating anybody. I think we're a plural society. We have a common language. We have a common cultural reference as well.
Absolutely. I'm still a Moroccan, even if I'm here, even if I identify as a Quebecer. I go to my family, we eat couscous together, we celebrate traditions. It's possible because it's a democratic country and we have the chance to be who we are with all respect for people we're living with.
Thank you so much.